Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Smith from Minnesota is recognized from her office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our panelists for this excellent hearing. My question is around global food insecurity. The Russian war in Ukraine is contributing to a global food security crisis. Somalia is one of the worst hit countries. Before the war, Ukraine and Russia contributed up to 90% of Somalia's grain supply, and now an estimated 7 million Somalis are facing acute food insecurity and near famine conditions. And despite some progress in restoring shipments of wheat to East African nations, we continue to see Russian efforts to steal and divert grain supplies and threats from Russian President Putin to look at reducing future shipments. So, Ms. Rosenberg, I was very glad to see last week the Treasury announcing new sanctions against individuals that are overseeing the seizure and the theft of Ukraine's grain. Could you talk to us about how we can do more to use sanctions and other tools of economic statecraft to hold Russia accountable for intentionally exacerbating this food crisis?
Thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to speak to food insecurity and Russia's role in enhancing, unfortunately, the food insecurity that exists for so many countries. One thing that's important we have found to point out is the necessity to clarify the fact that our sanctions do not bear on the export of or the trade of food, medicine, or medical devices. That speaks to misinformation out there. In fact, what we've sought to do is to clarify that we have permission in all of our sanction structure to ensure that such trade can continue. We've issued general licenses to that effect and additional guidance. It is important to hold accountable those entities, including in Russia, that have been responsible for stealing Ukrainian grain and destroying their agricultural equipment, from blockading the export of Ukrainian grain. And as you've noted, it's particularly outrageous and dismaying that Russia has been engaging in these activities given the profound need by countries that are food insecure for this food aid that Ukraine has been in the position of supplying, as well as Russia, in the past. Beyond efforts that we can bring forward and continue to do so to hold accountable those in Russia that are responsible, it's furthermore essential to ensure that that grain is able to be exported. And so the agreements, the negotiated agreements that have come into place and hopefully will be retained in order to allow that grain to continue to be exported on the water will be just as essential as holding accountable those who are responsible for preventing the export of that grain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to, just in the time that I have left, I'd like to follow up on the excellent questions from Senator Menendez and also Senator Rounds around strategies that Russia is deploying to evade sanctions. It seems as if this is a constantly evolving battle, right, between new strategies on the part of Russia to evade sanctions and then our efforts to adapt and to evolve as well. So maybe, Mr. Adams, could you just talk a little bit about that? How have Russia's strategies to evade coalition sanctions evolved, and how are our detection and enforcement strategies evolving in response?
Thank you, Senator. In many ways, I think we see the same playbook for sanctions evasion today that we've seen for years. There's clearly a drive to evade export controls, in particular, given the stark deficiencies of the Russian military and the ability to rearm itself. And so, from a strategic standpoint, we at the department are looking at efforts to evade both the financing, sanctionable financing of controlled exports, and looking specifically at new financiers and new shell companies, new financial services firms that are popping up in order to essentially play a shell game in terms of how to hide that money. One strategy that we have adopted with the task force is to be as public as quickly as possible in setting out a roadmap for the private sector to look at. When we unseal affidavits, when we take actions, we try to speak with as much detail as possible about the specific companies involved, the specific route of money that's going through the financial system, so that we have an outsized effect beyond a particular case or a particular seizure, so that banks, insurance companies, financial services firms can look at our work product and take their own action as they instill their own cultures of compliance.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.